Hello. All right, so let's get it started. Um, we're gonna do a quick video. Um, I think it was a pretty interesting week last week with the war that Iran war that broke out in um, I think it was supposed to be Saturday, this Saturday, if I recall correctly. It's Friday. It's yeah, Saturday. So, um, so there's a couple of things that happened, right? There's a couple of things that are new. Um, one of them are is that right, we went down to 24, went down to 22 Saturday, 23, 22, right? So yeah, Saturday we went to 22, then started buying. So I think it's pretty telling what. Okay, so there's a couple of things. First of all, I think there's been an increased volume than usual. Um, that's and we've been seeing more volume compared to previous weeks. For example, you know, these weeks, you know. So in comparison, this weekend was there was way more volume than the previous week, you know, than than before. So we've been seeing a spike in volume. We might see a continuation of this spike. There looks to be a renewed interest on crypto because of this recent spike. Investors look to be interested again in crypto, but not in the good way, right? But in the manipulative way. So we've been seeing a lot of the weekend, Bitcoin pumped instead of going down. We can see that on the 4 hour chart. Um, but right now, it's been kind of confusing. Ever since the war erupted, now it's Tuesday, and it's been kind of confusing. People do not know what's next. The market has been acted pretty much strangely. We can see here that the Nasdaq actually um, opened, actually, closed positive, you know, on Monday. So that was uh, kind of awkward. People bought the Nasdaq. People bought on the war news, and my opinion on this is basically, you know, of course it's pretty bullish. Of course a war breaking is it's pretty bearish in all sorts of markets, right? Um, but I think it was largely was this positive close was largely motivated by you know there was an over accumulation of shorts. There was an over, the sentiment widely, the consensus was short, was bearish. So what happens when there's consensus? Usually goes the other way. Usually in tight liquidity markets such as crypto, uh, when there's consensus in tight, when there's overly consensus scenarios, in tight liquidity markets, highly manipulative markets like crypto, what happens? What happens is they're usually predatory, um, predatory behavior arises. It's more than likely. So you got a lot of people shorting the bottom at 83, at 63, 64, and there seems to be more. Suddenly, there seems to be more liquidity on upper range levels like 67, 68, 69. And that's what it did on Saturday, you know. On Saturday, visited 63 and then went to 64, 68, and it started. Lately, Bitcoin has been behaving pretty direction like. So, what I mean by direction like, we have to pretty much take a look and see the 4 hour to make it clearer. Pretty direction like in the sense that once once it starts going one way, um, it just it goes that way. Decided is slow. Decided is so. It's just like you could say it's choppy. Another word could be choppy, but it's very direction like. Usually, when it starts going one way, it doesn't go back. It just keeps going up until it reaches the range, hits the range, and maybe then turns again. So it has been like that for a while. We can see here that it has been ranging. It's pretty much range behavior. Hit 69, goes down 62, then just again, this single one directionness here. It's brutal for shorts, brutal for everybody. It's just complete chop environment. You know, it's brutal you know, for people that play both sides. At mid range. So what has been paying is just playing the range literally, and people that play inside his range have been basically chopped, basically mutilated. So it's been pretty much one direction, and it's caused by this usually happens when there's tight liquidity. Usually happens when there's like pretty few market participants. This kind of behavior happens uh, when there's tight liquidity, there's not a lot of people. There's just a couple of like market makers deciding the market, and so yeah, I mean it's definitely bear market scenarios. It's definitely bear markets is uh, behavior. Usually, what happens is an accumulation of shorts at the bottom, and then brutal short squeezes. That your typical short squeezes is just brutally kill everybody, kill every short. It's just brutal. It's terrible. It's pretty difficult market to trade. Not gonna lie. And so what we've been seeing is basically we saw at Saturday we saw the war was breaking, and then things started going up suddenly. People started buying even at the news of war, which was People started buying, and I saw this as a heavy market manipulation. To me, it was heavy market manipulation. Like some people wanted to buy, some market makers wanted to take other market makers out of business. You know, it was definitely some internal fight going on. It was definitely some people were fighting up. You know, and you cannot see it here pretty well, but if you look at the 1 minute, you will see spikes, a lot of spikes. Just people just in, for example, in 68, a lot of spike, a lot of wicks, and at 68, and it was definitely just big wicks, up wicks, well, like what I mean, like short squeeze wicks, type of wicks. That definitely signaled huge market makers being outplayed, being taken out. That's that's the interpretation. Just big candles, meaning big market makers being carried out in stretchers, basically. So that's what happened the weekend. It was pretty volatile. It was pretty wild. It was pretty lawless. It was pretty just absolute carnage out there. Just absolute chop carnage, and it was pretty interesting. It was an uptake in volume. I feel like it's gonna continue this volume. I feel like we also enter another paradigm in a way, and overall, so the conditions overall have uh, getting more difficult in a way. Things may look like haven't changed a lot, but you can see an uptick in volume compared to these candles. You can see bigger candles, brutal candles, right? A lot of strength, a lot of volume all of a sudden, but at the same time, it's contained volume. You know, people are risking more. People are betting more, putting more leverage, using more leverage. So it's not. I don't believe it's. I don't believe it's organic, renewed interest, bullish momentum. I think it's more than anything. It's just pure greed and manipulation. You know, I think right now the terrain in crypto is pretty fertile for situations like this to happen, and it seems like it, right now it's attracting the worst of the worst of the investing community. They see it as a fertile ground for it's no man's land, basically. What I'm trying to say. So they see it as a place where they can, attracting all sort of, you know, like greedy and amoral and just a lot of like you know, not a lot of evil people. You know what I mean? Like, and so they're just trying to take advantage of this, exploiting it. So there's just a lot of like market makers stepping in and abusing current crypto conditions, which is pretty vulnerable and pretty exposed and pretty fucked. It's pretty terrible in a lot of ways. So that's my current view on crypto. I think it was definitely a change. It has been a change in direction and paradigm and across all markets with the new outbreak of the war. I believe that the war is overall bearish, so we're gonna continue to see a you know downfall in prices, but we can see that we can continue to study what happened exactly on the weekend. So basically, it opened. Um, it was a gap down, right? and then the next hour it was 1% down, right? And suddenly crypto started, like people started buying crypto like all of a sudden. You hear around 12, around midday, UTC, which is around like 4 a.m. Pacific. So people started buying all of a sudden. Right, I think it was in the open here. It was a market open on Monday, right? So at market open, they started buying and they bought crypto. They bought crypto mainly because of this, you could say, confirmation here. That's what they bought here for further. So just like we said, it's been one directionness of it's either up, or hold down. You know what I mean? So basically, they just bought, seeing this, and they want to take all the shorts. They want to take all of them. They want to take all the liquidity, all the closed shorts here. You know what I mean? That's what they did. All the shorts shorted here at the outbreak of the war, the fear, max fear. They closed, they covered around here. You know what I mean? So that's the only logical explanation for it. Because otherwise, it just don't make any sense. For a bullish catalyst, um, on Iran's war. Like you know what I mean? So they started buying, and they took they reached 7,100 here, and they took all the shorts here, right? So that's what they did. Um, and then the end of Monday, they started to sell again, right? On par with the Nasdaq, with the overall market, with equities, right? We can look gold later on, but the gold is also very pretty interesting. Um, Gold really did really break levels on really went parabolic on the weekend, and it it did more. It did more of a movement than equities did, or even Bitcoin did. It did more of the logical move than equities or Bitcoin. Later on, it got sold. It experienced sell-off, basically liquidate. Basically, it was what happened today was different. It was basically it's gonna take a moment. What happened today was experience something different than Monday or the weekend. There was an uptake on the Dixie. People started selling. Um, People start selling all sorts of everything. So what happens when you start to sell everything? When you start to sell gold, or you start you, well, people, the market wide experience a sell off. There was a market wide sell off. So what? So normally, like all like commodities and equities and Bitcoin, like I said, denominated or um, in US dollars. So what happened was that gold experienced a sell-off, equity experienced a sell-off, and then we get to see here, bar on par, bar per bar, we can see every bar that was sold was, reflected in an uptick in the dollar, right? So it's pretty much logical. It's pretty much, every time they sell, panic sell, massive sell, because there's, you know, more abundancy of people are buying more dollars, right? Because they sell the asset, they buy the dollars, right? So it's a logical consequence. People are afraid. People are selling their stuff because they they want to service debt. That people in foreign countries, they want to serve governments, want to service debt. All sorts of banks or institutions. Whenever there's a huge geopolitical situation, they want to hedge. They want to. Some of them panic and they want to sell their assets, whatever type, whatever class they could be, in order to hedge or in order to service whatever liabilities they may have, right? So this is just mainly a precaution. This is just, you know, you could say panic, but there's logical nature of hedging, right? So logical consequence of great big, just major governments selling their assets really, and to prevent further risk from right, just people basically taking profits, you could say, you know. So we're pretty much people start selling. I think we're gonna buy. You could buy tomorrow. In all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if people buy tomorrow. People buy equities tomorrow as a knee jerk reaction, so to say. And we already kind of experienced something uh, like that here. People, the dip buyers, people just went and bought because of this over, right? People started selling again. And so, so you could say that the market reached oversold conditions and the market wide reached oversold conditions basically. So as we got a knee jerk reaction, started buying again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we break momentarily on Bitcoin break range and we stay above 66. I wouldn't be surprised if we still had higher. Um, so that's a picture. It's a pretty complicated picture. It's not. I think people that are not patient, they're just running it to the markets too short. They're simply just gonna have a hard time, like seeing all these things happen because it's just systematic. I feel like all right now we're seeing right now in the early stages of the war is just systematic trading in the sense that it's just algorithms, it's just systematic, it's just all the system, all the emergency, all the levers and the trades that they just got triggered, and they just got uh, uh, developed, they just start on chain, you know. So you need to wait until this systematic trades develop, happen, uh, because these trades are usually set way before this, way before this took place. This probably months in advance. So what we saw basically, the sell-off was just uh, contains system-wide big ass movements, big whale Dixie movements, right? And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, because usually when there's like this uprise in Dixie in the dollar, means that some people are buying the dollar too, you know. Like some governments are buying the dollar because they're selling some other thing that is not reflecting in either gold and or in equities, right? So some big thing happening here, you know. So people, dip buyers, the good traders are gonna be buying here. Gonna buy, yeah, no, the smart traders will be buying every single systematic cost sell off. By system, I mean the world order, the governments, and just big banks, central banks, and institutions and lending, all this type of you know credit swaps, credit lines, and so on. So it just works. It's just way big market. You know what I mean? So that's what we saw here. So summarizing, um, we're summarizing. What I want to say is we are still in early stages of the war, and therefore markets may act unpredictably. It may act to some people irrationally. It's not. What I'm trying to say is that its drop will not be as fast as people normally think it will be. As instant. Usually it takes time. Usually it takes time. You need the systematic trades to unwind the trigger to finish selling, to finish buying, and so on, to finish selling, and the buyers to finish buying, until we see a lower prices. So all I'm saying is that it's not going to be as fast people think. It's not going to be as logical, as clear as people think. So it's going to be probably going to be some up days. It's going to be some days when people are going to buy. You probably going to reach higher lows, higher highs, and but I still wouldn't be shaken out of my conviction that it's going to go lower because of macro and just geopolitical. But again, this gold sell-off is not really related to a reduction of tensions or a reduction of uncertainty. It's basically, like I said, it's just market-wide sell-off and just market-wide. Uh, you could say taking profit, just people just going uh, to uh, to say heaven, so to say. You know what I mean? So um, they don't want to get, key institutions don't want to. They have pretty very small thresholds for for you know for things going wrong. So it was just basically people selling whatever they had in hand. Just systematic selling in a way to get more dollars for whatever issue they may face. So that's I think what we saw in Tuesday, and but later we found out that they continued to buy, right? So now, did that happen? That happened on Tuesday too. Monday, Tuesday, yeah, Sunday. Sunday. It's Monday. I think it's Wednesday. Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday was so it happened Monday, right? And they sold. They started selling, right? That happened in um that's the Dixie. They started selling on Europe zone or Euro time, right? So when the New York market opened, it was the Dixie was already pretty high, and what New York did basically was they sold to first, you know, and they sold again, right? So that's what we that's what happened basically. The dollar and as I so it was pretty much London that started selling, right? Pretty much London and Asia started selling, right? So I mean the thesis remained the same. It's gonna take time for things to unwind. It just not take do not run into trades, because it's gonna get time. It's gonna take time for it to unwind. We might see the higher highs, and it just overall is gonna it's not gonna take overall it's gonna expect volatility. People are trying to shake everybody out. People know that people are overly short, so they will like to squeeze people out. So just expect anything. So lastly, just going back at um 1 minute, I think the 1 minute shows a completely different picture, in a way, a more clear picture. With what I wanted to say is, you just look here and just look at the um, this type of short squeezes, like of leverage buying, you know, and just you can see that it's very uncorrelated. It's not correlated at all, you know, and it's just a lot of people just getting out of their shorts. You can see here a lot of people just getting brutalized, and a lot of people getting chopped. And just getting brutal for everybody out here. Crypto is just basically the wild west, and it's just and it's even more so on bear markets. On bear markets, it's pretty lawlessness, like times infinity. Like it's outrageous. The amount of people need to go to jail, like pretty much. Bear markets the worst. Is You can pretty much see the worst of the worst, the worst of the human nature in bear markets. So it's not a pretty ideal conditions, right? This is only on Tuesday, right? Just look at this, like it's what the hell happened. You know what I mean? You have to play extreme ranges for it to work right now, type of condition. And just look here, like what the hell? it's just all of this pump is just not warranted for it. Like I know that there's a pump too, but not the way that Bitcoin pumped. The way Bitcoin pumped was just basically just criminal. Like it was just absolutely. I mean, let's look here. It was supposed to dump. Everything was lining up perfectly. The wedge, and then it just didn't dump anymore. Right? Some people started buying. Some people wanted to take um, other people out. Some people out. You know what I mean? So at this point, it was just pure luck. It was just pure random. It was just pure at the mercy of some individuals and some institutions that made completed this turn. So it just pumped the hell out of it. Pumped like 3,000, $4,000. Like it's insane the amount of like these levels of liquidity was previously unseen like 2 weeks ago. It's just you can see that pretty much like evil, like pretty much well, the not so good type, the worst types, you know, are behind this, returned and are just looking at crypto right now. So just so you know, to be careful right now and who recognize what type, who are right now trading these markets, who are not controlling these markets. So it's pretty much pretty predatory behavior, pretty predatory markets right now. So just for you to be safe and preferably do not over leverage, right? That's always my advice, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean it's been quite choppiness. It's been brutal, man. It's been crazy. It's been very pretty volatile. Pretty good for scalpers, right? But for swing traders and so on, yeah. Anyway, uh, maybe just gonna spend 5 more minutes and just you're gonna explain the wicks. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be pretty brutal, man. It's been pretty volatile all all over the place. We can see here. Look, I mean this is just insane. Look, it's crazy, absolute craziness. What the hell was this, man? This was a Monday open. It was also brutalized. People just basically wanted to take some people out. There's no other explanation. They were just going for liquidity. They were just going for what they were doing, what the market makers were doing on the weekend. You can see here exactly what they were doing on the weekend. Just look here. What the hell was this? What the hell was this week for? People were shorting here and then they got fucking wrecked. All right. That was hunting at its finest. This type of wicks, this type of candles, it's definitely some people like definitely hunted some market maker. Just got basically some market maker got brutalized. There's no other explanation. We just kind of candle like it's insane. So this confirms my what I was saying that uh, it's just absolutely brutal behavior like right now, and I would advise people to be um, people to be just be cautious on these markets because you can see here it's just pretty much People are just getting blown out, and not just regular people, but market makers, but whales, you know. So if whales are getting blown out, what makes you think that you'll get a chance at anything? You know what I mean? So just pretty much market makers playing ball at this point, just manipulating the market. Just look at this. Just look at this. Like there's like the worst types on right now, uh, taking over crypto right now. So after a long while, crypto not doing anything, just being a fucking dead zone. Now you get to see this the crows just suddenly just the worst types just go back and like try to wreck the whole ecosystem down. So that's my bias. That's my view. I would say that things will get more volatile. Things will get more irrational. Things we're gonna get superficially more uh, not gonna make a lot of sense because of the recent news of the war. People are gonna trade emotionally, expect that, and trade hastily. So all in all, that's my interpretation, and take care.